Hello and welcome to Scots United, where I, Scott, and my team of Scots, who are also me, bring you the latest in movies, television, and popular culture. So we're starting off with movies, and we're starting off with 1917. Hey Scott, so Dad and I recently went to see 1917, directed by Sam Mendes. Oh yeah, Sam Mendes, American Beauty, Skyfall, Jarhead. It won the Golden Globe for Best Drama, and if you've heard about it, it's filmed to suggest that it's essentially one uninterrupted take. It just keeps going. And, I heard a review from Justin Chang the other day about it, and he has kind of a point. On the one hand, it kind of in that way wants to draw your attention to look what we're doing. We've choreographed all this stuff and all these, camera movements through trenches, over this, over that, into the air, through the river, just to show you we can do it. And sometimes that kind of effort can kind of overshadow the movie itself. I do think, though, it is quite an accomplishment. So what makes it stand apart from the rest? Well, the performances really do ground the whole thing. George McKay is certainly the lead. He was Viggo Mortensen's oldest son in Captain Fantastic. He was in a little movie called Pride about an LGBTQ group that was supporting the Welsh miners in the 80s that I personally love. And he's great. He's great, as is Dean Charles Chapman, who played Tommen in Game of Thrones. He's the other lead. And, Benedict Cumberbatch, Colin Firth, Andrew Scott, Sexy Priest from Fleabag, they all make an appearance in cameos. But the two young guys, they're really the leads. Takes a lot to rely on relative unknowns to anchor a movie. The score, I think, is really, really powerful and helps really set the pace and the tone. It's super tense, and it almost feels like an immersive video game in a way. You could make this a video game almost tomorrow. You could just adapt the movie and try to get through what they get through, and it would work. But that's not necessarily a criticism. It just sort of feels that way. I mean, it is beautifully shot, and there is so much, heart behind it. And it certainly is a movie that is a statement against war, reminding, I think, the audience who dies in war, which is the young people, the young men generally who are fighting these wars, and how it tears families apart, and how it is often arbitrary, who dies and when, and how they die because of, tactics governed by the powerful, men, the powerful white men who dictate who dies and who doesn't. And I think for even now, over 100 years later, where we were, on the brink of war with, Iran a moment ago, it seems we should be reminded, what still happens, who still suffers when war happens. And I think the movie does all that. I think it's very, very well done, and definitely, I think something worth seeing on the big screen at that level, with that kind of scope. So, hey, go see 1917. We can all get behind an anti-war film. It's well done, and it's still in theaters. And now let's talk about... So there's this animated film recently nominated for Best Animated Feature called I Lost My Body. It's available on Netflix. It's a French animated film with subtitles. Okay, that might dissuade some people, I suppose. That may sound like a lot to some people, right? But it's really worth it. This is deep. The person that directed it worked on Amelie and A Very Long Engagement. It's about a severed hand that sort of comes to life, kind of like Thing in the Addams Family, and wants to find its old owner. And while we're watching that happen, that kind of journey of the hand, hence the title I Lost My Body, we were seeing flashbacks from the childhood and the youth of this guy that lost his hand, who is still a young man in his early 20s, and we see his life leading up to losing the hand. And if it sounds madcap and silly. It's not. It's actually much more what? What is it about? It's about loss. It's about like taking a leap of faith. It's about like sort of finding the beauty in life and like seeing the good things through the bad, and moving on. It's actually about a lot of things. It's kind of one of those you finish it and I had to kind of sit there and think about it and watch and just kind of ruminate over it. The animation's gorgeous. It's funny while also being super clever, of course, and it's touching and okay, let's not get too emotional about a severed hand movie, but I'm glad you liked it. So, like, yeah, I think if you're looking for something really different, really thought-provoking, symbolic, and a really distinct, different kind of best animated feature film, because that kind of movie doesn't usually get nominated for that Oscar. Really check it out. It's called I Lost My Body. Okay, so true art film, quirky, different, but worth watching. So that wraps us up for this week. 2 good movies to see. And hey, we're rocking. The Oscars are early this year. So, the nominations came out. I think we'll talk more about that next week and start looking ahead to the Oscars. Have a good week, guys.